there something I can help you with?
Call 911. I don't have my phone. Where's your phone?
In the car.
Are you okay in there? Watch out, someone down there!
Turn to the gate.
I don't know.
Maybe we did something to him.
He's one guy. And there's 3 of us.
The scariest thing you've ever seen at an ATM was probably your checking account balance. Today we're unwrapping ATM, a holiday horror flick that proves 3 brain cells and a single ATM booth are not enough to survive a night of murder. Directed by David Brooks, this gimmicky little horror flick traps its characters and us in a single location nightmare that turns a routine cash withdrawal into a survival scenario. No haunted houses, no ancient curses, just one cold night, a parking lot in the middle of nowhere, and a villain who's part Michael Myers, part mall security, all menace. Let's get into it. Plot. The film opens with a sequence showing an unknown figure meticulously mapping out a location, calculating sight lines, camera ranges, and every detail of a chilling plan in motion. We then cut to David, an accomplished pencil pusher at a stockbroker firm. David seems to be having a rough day, having just lost millions of dollars on behalf of a client. He considers heading home early until his friend Corey reminds him about the company's Christmas party. It's David's last chance to talk to his crush, Emily, before she leaves for a new job. After multiple failed attempts to impress with pickup lines that sound like AI-written romance tweets, "Are you an electrician? Because you're turning me on." Yeah, I just cringed. It's pretty clear David isn't the most charismatic guy. He struggles to talk to hot girls, or any girls really. Relatable. Later that evening at the Christmas party, David locks eyes with Emily. After a bit of mental preparation, he finally builds up the courage to go talk to her again, but the conversation doesn't exactly go as planned. Still determined, David follows her outside and finally manages to ask her out on a proper date. Because of this, Emily misses her taxi. David offers to give her a ride home. "Ah, I see what you did there. Big brain." He runs back into the office to let the boys know what happened. As David's about to leave, Corey reminds him that David was supposed to be his ride home too. David tells him to take a taxi, but Corey doesn't have any spare cash. Being the good friend that he is, David gives in and agrees to drive Corey home too. While driving down the freeway, they all decide to grab some pizza to satisfy their midnight cravings, but of course the pizza joint only takes cash, because apparently it's the 1600s. So they stop at an ATM in the middle of no freaking where because of horror logic. Corey goes to withdraw some money while David and Emily stay in the car, sharing a surprisingly romantic moment. "You have the most gorgeous feet I've ever seen." Okay then. They're interrupted when Corey waves at David from the ATM, signaling him to come over. David hops out and heads over, leaving Emily alone in the car. She quickly grows impatient and decides to join them. She tries to lock the car, but it doesn't seem to work. "Well, I guess I'll just leave this car unlocked in the middle of an empty parking lot." Normally that wouldn't be a big deal, but considering we're in a horror movie, well, yeah. Emily asks David why he's taken out money, and he explains that Corey's card wasn't working. With cash in hand, they're ready to leave until they notice a cloaked man standing in the distance, staring directly at them. Maybe he's just out for a midnight walk? I mean, why else would someone stand motionless in the middle of a parking lot at 1 a.m. on Christmas Eve? You probably know where this is going. Corey, officially creeped out, opens the door to leave, but the cloaked man immediately starts walking toward them. Corey panics and runs back into the ATM booth to cower like a little baby. Suddenly they hear a dog barking in the distance. The cloaked man approaches the dog's owner and attacks him, leaving the man unconscious on the ground. Now fully realizing the severity of their situation, the 3 friends begin to panic. They've all left their phones in the car and frantically search the ATM booth for a panic button. There isn't one. Meanwhile, the cloaked man shifts back into his alpha stance as he watches them. Corey plans to run out of the car to get his phone, but the cloaked man, let's just call him Randy now, sees what they're doing. He casually opens the trunk of the car and pulls out David's toolbox. Randy walks around to the back of the ATM and shuts off the power. At the same time, Emily spots the fire alarm. The trapped trio decides to trigger it in hopes of being rescued by some rugged, muscular firemen, naturally. While they're figuring out how to activate it, luck seems to strike. A police car reappears in the distance. They bang on the glass, desperate for attention. But the cop doesn't notice and simply drives off. Plan B, bribe the psycho. David decides to offer Randy some cash to buzz off, except Corey's broke. You brought nothing to this survival situation except sarcasm and poor financial planning. They manage to get some money, and David prepares to use it as a diversion so he can escape in the other direction. Unfortunately, Randy is still behind the ATM and hears the entire conversation. David opens the ATM door and finds Randy standing right in front of them. Yeah, here's $5. Can you please leave us alone? Thank you." As Randy bends down to pick up the cash, David bolts to the car. He tries to unlock the driver's door, but fumbles, so he rushes to the passenger side and opens it from there. Inside, he tries to start the car, but he can't seem to get the key in. Before he can even call for help, Randy smashes the window. David's forced to abandon the car and run back to the ATM. Meanwhile, Randy opens the trunk again and casually places David's wallet and phone, stolen from his jacket, inside. This guy is way too good. Back in the ATM, Emily decides to get creative and starts drawing on the glass with her lipstick. Such immaculate calligraphy, I might add. As the night grows colder, Emily remembers something she saw on Facebook. Apparently, if you enter your PIN code backwards, it alerts the police. Corey quickly shuts that down. And what if your PIN is something like 4224? You're screwed either way, see? This is why you don't trust everything you read on the internet. A little later, Corey turns around and realizes Randy's gone. He contemplates making a run for it, but the other two manage to talk him out of it. Then comes the big question. Why is Randy doing this? Corey brings up David's client from earlier, the one who supposedly lost millions because of him. Look, he knew I was putting all that money into the Trump coin. He was okay with it. He knew the risks. Suddenly, their conversation is interrupted by the return of the police car from before, and this time the officer actually notices them. He drives over. Oh, wait. Great, it's just a security guard. Still better than nothing, right? The officer gets out and walks over to what probably looks like three friends getting freaky inside the ATM. The panicked trio tried to warn him about Randy, but of course, he can't hear them, because the glass is conveniently soundproof. Still, that's okay. He stumbles upon the body outside. All he has to do now is call for backup. Uh-oh. Good night. Sleep tight. Inside the ATM, the freezing cold has finally taken its toll on Emily. She's now completely disoriented and speaking gibberish, something David wished he had caused by other means. You get it. David and Corey, powered by desperation and protein bars, jump Randy like it's an episode of Cops Seasonal Depression Edition. Suddenly, hey, now seemingly free, they prepare to leave, but then they see another cloaked man watching them, the real Randy. Realizing they just beat an innocent man to death, they freak out. They rummage through the body and find his wallet. Ah, damn, he had a wife and kids. They share a brief moment of silence for accidentally team-killing a civilian. David and Corey start arguing, blaming each other for getting into the situation. As the argument intensifies, Corey, in frustration, decides to leave the ATM. "I'm not ready to die." David and Emily try to talk him out of it, but Corey insists. He's determined to leave and finally embrace his dream of becoming a sprinter. Eager to save his friend, David prepares to run after him, but Emily pleads with him not to leave her alone, and seeing Emily beg, yeah, that's David's fantasy. He complies. Simp or not? Just as he's about to leave again, he sees Randy rapidly approaching Corey and completely wimps out. Randy plunges a needle into Corey's chest. David and Emily fall to the ground in shock, in complete disbelief at what just happened. Well, that's not the kind of penetration I had in mind for tonight, but okay. Later, David and Emily share a quiet moment, talking about emotions and feelings. Lame. Things start to heat up, and just as they're about to kiss, boom, David gets epically clocked by Randy, who starts banging on the back of the ATM. Suddenly, the pair jump in shock as Corey can be seen crawling back toward the ATM. Taking advantage of Randy being behind the building, David and Emily quietly open the door and sprint toward their friend. They grab Corey and head back toward the ATM to die together. True friendship. But before they make it back inside, Randy notices them and begins to chase them. He slips on what we can only assume is a banana peel, giving the trio just enough time to re-enter their glass coffin. Inside, they try to stop Corey's bleeding, but quickly remember their only medical training is Googling symptoms and overreacting, which, to be fair, covers 99% of the internet-enabled population. Suddenly, Corey starts seizing as the ATM begins flooding with freezing cold water. Anyway, David and Emily try to lift Corey, but he's kinda heavy. Moving on, David embraces his inner MacGyver. grabs a lighter and a trash bin to trigger the fire alarm. Unfortunately, he's a hobbit. To fix this, Emily climbs on his shoulders while holding the flaming bin and actually manages to reach the alarm. Success! And she dies in the process. Man, there's a lot of falling in this movie. Now overwhelmed by grief, David cradles Emily's lifeless body. Then some more random stuff happens. Eventually, David spots Randy watching from a distance. Enraged and determined to avenge his friends, he throws together a Molotov cocktail and hurls it at him. Oh wait, that's not Randy. David fell for the fake Randy gag again. Shortly after, the police arrive at the scene and promptly arrest poor David. By morning, the entire car park is swarming with emergency services, forensic teams, and news reporters. David looks out at the crowd and sees dozens of people wearing the same cloak as Randy. Suspicious. As the police review the recovered security footage, we see that Randy had planned everything flawlessly. He never once appeared in the footage, successfully framing David for everything. A few days later, Randy is seen in a storage room, sitting at a table and plotting future crimes at other ATMs in the city. I mean, it's creative, I'll give him that. And that's how you make an entire movie with about $5. Acting and character behavior. Let's start with the unexpected MVP, Josh Peck. Yes, that Josh Peck, from Nickelodeon's Drake and Josh. If you thought he was doomed to eternally be the goofy sidekick yelling, "Megan," think again. Peck pulls off the panicked doofus with a chip on his shoulder surprisingly well. His portrayal of Corey, the loudmouth bro with a mix of sarcasm and selfishness, works because Peck leans into the character's flaws. Corey isn't likable, but he feels real. He's the guy who jokes too much in tense moments and makes just enough bad choices to get people killed. A horror movie's gotta have one of those. Brian Garrity playing David is our reluctant leading man. He's fine. He looks and feels like a middle manager trying to survive a saw trap. His arc, from awkward finance bro to slightly less awkward traumatized survivor, never really hits emotionally. But Garrity sells the basics: confusion, desperation, a tiny glimmer of courage. You get the sense that David's been avoiding confrontation his whole life, so watching him panic flail through this icy nightmare feels oddly fitting. Alice Eve, as Emily, unfortunately draws the short end of the character's stick. She's written like a plot device with legs. Eve does what she can with the material. She's convincing as the rational, level-headed presence in the group, but there's only so much you can do when your lines mostly consist of, "Don't go out there," and "Is that blood?" Her best moment is when she uses lipstick to write a message on the glass. Not because it's smart, but because it's literally the only time she does anything not reactive. Now, let's address the real horror: character behavior. If you thought the villain was cold, wait till you get a load of the logic. These people make decisions like they've never seen a horror movie or interacted with basic physics. They choose not to run when the killer is clearly on the opposite side of the booth. They forget they left their phones in the car, then just never go back for them. Emily exits a warm car into a freezing ATM booth for comfort. David tries to bribe a killer with a $5 bill like he's tipping a valet. Corey walks into an ambush like he's speedrunning How to Die First. And yet, it's watchable. That's the paradox here. The actors are doing just enough to keep the story from collapsing. You believe their fear, even when their actions are boneheaded. It's frustrating because the potential was there. Give these three some better dialogue, a touch of backstory, and a few rational decisions, and suddenly, this frozen nightmare becomes a compelling psychological pressure cooker. Instead, we get cardboard motivations. No loved ones worried about them. No "I've got a dog at home" stakes. These aren't fully formed characters. They're winter-wrapped archetypes wandering toward their inevitable doom. Still, credit where it's due. They commit, even when the script forgets to. Visuals and sound design. If ATM had one thing going for it besides Josh Peck with facial scruff, it's the way it weaponizes cold. Director David Brooks manages to make this single-location thriller visually oppressive, not in a grand cinematic way, but in that my soul is slowly freezing inside a fishbowl kind of way. The booth itself becomes a character, sterile, boxy, and absolutely not up to code for emergency exits. The real MVP, though? The makeup and atmosphere. The slow descent into frostbitten agony is actually kind of brutal to watch. Our three human ice cubes visibly decline with every passing minute. Red noses, trembling lips, blue-tinged skin, you feel the temperature drop, and not just because everyone's breath looks like it came from a vape cloud. And when violence happens, oof, Cold injuries hurt more, and the movie doesn't let you forget that. A face slammed into frozen concrete somehow feels worse than a typical horror bash. It's pain with hyperthermia seasoning. Sound design plays it surprisingly minimal, almost too minimal. There's a lot of silence and ambient whooshing that, while realistic, doesn't always build the tension it's clearly hoping for. When the movie goes quiet, it's not ominous quiet, it's "my speakers might be broken" quiet. Still, the occasional audio stings, when someone dies for example, are sharp enough to make you jump, especially given how numb the rest of the soundscape is. The missed opportunity? Music. The film doesn't use score in any meaningful way. A chilling musical motif or even a recurring sound cue for Randy's lurking would have gone a long way in boosting the menace. Instead, the silence often deflates tension instead of building it. And let's talk about the opening credits. On paper, showing Randy's detailed plans, sight lines, camera blind spots, diagrams is cool. But by revealing how calculated he is before anything even happens, it robs us of mystery. We don't get to fear him. We're busy analyzing his PowerPoint presentation. Fear factor score. Let's be real. ATM isn't nightmare fuel. It's not going to haunt your dreams or make you afraid of public spaces the way The Strangers made people nail boards to their windows. But there's a certain icy dread that ATM manages to capture, one that sneaks up on you in the quieter, lonelier moments. The setting does a lot of the heavy lifting here. Being trapped in a glass box in the dead of winter while a silent killer watches you from just a few feet away, that's unnerving. There's no supernatural entity here, no cursed artifact, no demonic possession, just one unhinged man with a parka and a plan. And sometimes that's scarier. Once you realize Randy is a human, not a ghost, not a monster, your fear morphs. You stop asking "what is he?" and start asking "why is he like this?" Which arguably is way worse. However, that fear loses a few notches every time a character makes an obviously stupid decision. Like, it's hard to feel terrified when you're yelling "just run" every 5 minutes. The horror evaporates the moment logic does, and the reveal that Randy's whole plan hinges on happenstance, 3 specific people arriving at the same ATM at the same time, makes his god-tier planning feel oddly lucky. The gore is light, the violence is sudden and harsh, but mostly bloodless. What does hurt are the cold-induced deaths, the kind of dread that seeps into your bones as characters turn into walking icicles. You might not be scared watching this film, but you'll definitely reach for a blanket. So, with all that in mind, Fear Factor scored 4.3, cold-blooded and calculated. Not terrifying, but eerie. It'll make you side-eye your next midnight snack run, and honestly, that's worth something. Final verdict. ATM is like getting stuck in a snow globe with a psychopath. Compact, cold, and occasionally entertaining if you shake it hard enough. On paper, it sounds like a lean, high-concept thriller. 3 people, 1 isolated booth, a silent killer, and a whole lot of snow. What we should have gotten was a claustrophobic game of survival chess. What we actually got was more like checkers, played by 3 people who keep jumping their own pieces. Let's not sugarcoat it. This movie's got logic holes big enough to drive a snowplow through. From the absurd coincidence of all 3 characters randomly ending up at the same ATM to the villain's plan depending on exactly that happening, ATM feels like a screenplay built around a single image. What if people were trapped inside a glass ATM booth? And then someone forgot to write the rest. And while the ending tries to come in swinging with a twist and a gotcha moment, it lands more like a fizzle than a boom. You'll be squinting at the credits, wondering, wait, why did Randy do any of this? And how the hell did he push a car against the doors without anyone seeing? But here's the thing, it's not unwatchable. The setup is strong enough to carry you through the first half, and the killer, Randy, is just intriguing enough to make you want to know more. He's cold, literally and figuratively, meticulous, and faceless. That planner's montage in the opening credits, while it kills the mystery, it does promise a villain with franchise potential. If you told me this was the first film in a weird minimalist slasher saga where Randy targets people in random public spaces, I'd be morbidly curious. The acting's decent, the tension hits in short bursts, and the weather is practically a co-star, but the real missed opportunity lies in the script. With a tighter plot, smarter character decisions, and a villain with even 1 line of dialogue or motivation beyond just because, this could have been a cult classic. Instead, it's a lukewarm thriller and an ice-cold wrapper. So, is ATM worth watching? Yes, but with friends, and with wine, and with zero expectations. And there you have it, ATM 2012. If you had fun freezing your brain cells with me, make sure to smash that like button, subscribe for more horror breakdowns, and drop a comment. What would you have done in that glass box? Run, fight, cry in the corner, and hope Randy forgot about you? Until next time, be sure to check out this next review.